All right. Good morning, Leni Rivera. Here we are. We're sitting down to talk about some really important things. And mostly, we want to discuss how things are changing in the world of the built environment, facilities, in particular about workplace experience. So this is another episode in our Dancing with Change in facility management, and we're really wanting to talk about many different perspectives. So we have invited your expertise to help inform us about workplace experience. So forge away, and I may ask questions as we go.
Please do. I hope that you do. Thank you for having me, Kathleen. This is really awesome. I love this group and I love what you're doing. So I'm really appreciative of being on this with you and in front of everybody. This is fantastic. Um, so I'll start by talking about what workplace experience is, and I will define it the way that I have been defining it all these years. There's a very clear difference between workplace experience and employee experience. Normally, these two are interchanged. Most of the reason this is why workplace is put under HR in some cases because there is that misnomer that an employee experience is the same as a workplace experience. They're different. Okay. An employee experience that lives in HR, that is the onboarding, employees experience. They're all non-tangible aspects, promotions, rewards and benefits, that type of thing. A workplace experience is the experience workers have in their physical work environment. It's all the tangible aspects. So it is what you see, hear, feel, taste, smell in the built environment. Physical environment could be your home environment, but it is the physical environment. And the reason why it's so important to differentiate that is because the skills, competencies that are required to create a workplace experience are very distinct and different than HR, than finance, and everything else, as we know. FM is a very, very unique discipline, as are all the other aspects to create a workplace experience. Uh, Safety and security is a huge component of it. Corporate real estate, the location, the space requirements, all of that. Interior design, workplace technology, workplace services, workplace sustainability, all of the different aspects that create a physical environment that empower people to thrive through the physical environment is what a workplace experience is. And I always start by defining that because there is so many misunderstandings of when you talk about workplace experience, it's just thrown out. And unfortunately, it's also vastly misunderstood, as FM is, as workplace services are, as safety and security is. And that is all really important when you talk about a workplace experience. I'm going to start with that. Um, one of the things that the pandemic, I'll start with this. The pandemic was awful. It was devastating on many folds and in many different ways. But there is a silver lining with pandemic. And I think one of the biggest silver linings of the pandemic is it has now emphasized the need for and the value of a workplace experience. Because the one thing that the pandemic shook up in the world of work is workplace. That's the one thing it shook up, where before, since the industrial revolution, workers were working centralized in one location. So all the HR systems, all of the benefits, all of the ways people worked, all of the how that was defined was based on it being centralized. Now it's decentralized. So now HR has to change things, IT has to change things, the way we manage things have to change. But that's because of workplace. So now with the conversations going on about, are we going to bring people back to the office? What type of hybrid environment are we doing? Where companies are failing is that they're trying to drive people back to an office that was built in a way that never took into consideration how people work. So you're trying to throw people back into a space that was already broken. So it's not going to work. There was a great study by the Genzer Research Institute last year, and they compared companies around the world that had hybrid environments, and they compared companies that changed and evolved their workplaces, their physical environments as part of their strategy, of their hybrid strategy, against companies that did nothing and did make no changes. The impact is incredible. The improvement on employees' ability to do individual work, the improvement on teams' capability to work together, and even on organizational success was increased by over 90% with organizations that drove that change in the workplace. So the topic of workplace experience is so much more important now. And I like to say, so are all of the professionals that create a workplace experience.
I think you're right. In fact, it's kind of interesting because the pandemic really did have huge impact. But I think it was enabled, or the impact was perhaps more enabling because of technology.
Yeah.
Because there actually was an opportunity to work remotely, and then all of these different software systems were instantly popular because it supported this opportunity to work
Yes.
from anywhere, right? So
Yes.
as we're enjoying
Absolutely.
this
And
software now.
the funny thing, Kathleen, is that technology has always been there. I mean, the digital revolution came already, and we were still working in a centralized environment. We've already been talking on FaceTime. We've already been meeting on Zoom, even before
Yes.
the pandemic. It's kind of like, duh, now like we really do have to shift. Um, but I think where the major difference now is, where before the pandemic, people who were working remote, and you'd have these Zoom meetings, when you were in a meeting with somebody on a on a virtual meeting, so somebody on camera, it was always them and us in the room and them. So sometimes you're not even paying attention to them and the people in on the camera and on Zoom. You're really just paying attention to people. It really was, oh, the remote people versus us in the office.
Right.
And now post pandemic, that is a shift that we all have had to start to make, because we now all know what it's like to be the them in the room. So now we have to start working as together. And this creation of, that's why you can't go backwards. You can't move back into the way that we were working before, because the way we were working before did not keep up with the digital revolution and how to include people in this new environment. So you can't build conference rooms in the same ways that you did before. You can't expect people to be having meetings where there's not somebody who's not in the room. There will always be that case. So you have to recreating the physical work environment and redefining the experience that workers have in the physical environment is, in my opinion, one of the most exciting things that we get to do in this generation.
So yeah, I think you're right. Tell us about some of these physical changes that are going on to actually accommodate, where we are now and then going into the future.
That's awesome. Well, my favorite, so as a workplace experience specialist, and that's always been my focus, pre-pandemic, I'd always been frustrated that, we would build these environments, rows and rows of desks, right? And, okay, how many conference rooms? Let's put this many, let's put that many, and then expect people to just work in that way. Just find your workstation and work the way we tell you to work. Whereas now there is a need to first understand how people work in that location. What is the demographic? What is the tenure? What are the types of industries that are working together? How do they meet? What are the complexities of their meetings? What are the complexities of their gathering? Because all of that plays an important part in how you're creating the physical environment that supports them. I'll give you sort of an analogy. Dr. Craig Knight, who is a organizational psychology, he is renowned. He talks about how if you go to a zoo, and we've all gone to these types of zoos, if you go to a zoo, and you bring, you're in the zoo and you see these cages for these animals, you see tigers in small cages, or, and I've seen those because I've lived in different parts of the world. Your heart just clenches because you just know innately that is not humane to build these cages for these, animals, and they're not thriving even though they're fed. And but if you go to zoos, San Diego Zoo or other zoos that build build enclosures that are built as if they were the natural habitat of that animal, then that animal is thriving, and you just, as a human being, you feel, oh, this is a great zoo because it's built out of their natural habitat. And yet us as workers, we have always built cages to define how we are supposed to work. but it is not our natural habitat and environment in which we actually do thrive. And that, I think, is one of the things why now, when we're talking about a workplace experience post-pandemic, if companies do not understand how people work and create environments that allow them to thrive, then there's no way they're going to come back to the office. There's no way they're going to be back in the office and actually thrive. And what I mean by that is it's different in different locations. It used to be different per industry, and it's not even always that either. I know some banking companies that are hybrid. You know, it's not just because you're banking you have to be in the office. It a lot of it depends on the demographic, the type of people, the type of industries, and how they interact and the complexities of their interaction, and then building environments around how they work. That, I think, is the big movement moving forward. Now, in terms of managing buildings and FMs, it is also what makes it the most complex, because before you could count on things. You could count on there are people 5 days a week. You know how to do these metrics. You know how to build an environment. You know when the cleaning schedule needs to happen. You know when the maintenance schedules need to happen, because it's predictable. Now it is no longer predictable. So I think the biggest challenge for FMs is that it's okay now. How are we going to start to recreate even the ways that we work so that we can create an environment that supports this new hybrid environment? And there's a lot of different conversations that I've enjoyed hearing and being a part of, and hearing about how that's going to work. You know, and there's technologies in place as well. There are sensors. There's this great debate about sensors, but I'm a big proponent of sensors. In the past, we measured people coming to the office by badge reports. Well, badge reports will tell you how many people are in the office, but it doesn't tell you what they're doing when we're in the office. I've seen sensors that have shown people favoring a specific area, and the only reason is because the temperature is lower by a few degrees. And if we knew that as FMs, then this is the temperature in which people thrive, then let's make that more universal. Let's figure out how we can do that. Also, lighting plays a huge part. We as FMs know that. We as workplace professionals know these things. But now sensors can help us really figure out where people gather and why they gather in those spaces. And that really lends itself to a workplace experience that allows people to thrive in ways that you would never know.
I think another challenge to this is finally understanding that one size does not fit all, and that people actually do different things.
Mhm.
I'm also seeing that organizations have had a challenge in measuring productivity because they probably didn't realize that not everybody does the same thing. And
Right? Yep.
some people are very heads down, concentrative. Others are very collaborative because it's the nature of their work. And yet others are very mobile because that's the nature of their work. So if you're a salesperson, you're probably mobile. But
Yes.
you know, you could also be collaborative because you got to meet with your colleagues.
Yes.
And sometimes you're concentrative because you're thinking about, okay, I got to get into the details of this. I'm going to prepare.
Yes.
So we've got this varied ways of working, and
Yes.
organizations need to firstly identify that
Yeah.
and then plan spaces to support that, right? So
Yes. Absolutely, Kathleen. I think you nailed it too. It's where it's measuring people's productivity and measuring productivity. I was just having this conversation with a group of people last night, and measuring productivity is, I think, where a lot of managers went wrong in the past, and they're trying to apply that now. And the only reason I mean that, that's a general thing. So it's a general statement. So I only mean that as a general statement because many managers do get it right. But measuring productivity has always been a big question mark. How do you? Well, I think the pandemic has shown us how you do not. Like, you do not measure productivity by number of hours you've been in your desk. I mean, I'm a Gen X, so most of my career had been in the office, and there was a non-verbal measurement of your ability to produce or your success rate if you're in the office after hours. The longer you're in there, oh, you're a hard worker, you're really right, and oh, you come in early, oh, she's a hard worker. It's this really weird measure of success. And yet, when you look at Amazon came out with a study that showed that the busiest time of their online shoppers is during the workday. So it's such a misnomer that just because I'm a butt in a seat that I'm actually productive, right? It's not. It's all for show. So if you're going to use those same metrics on productivity, then you've got it wrong. I agree with you that it's now not so much, it's not more about, are you delivering what you're supposed to deliver, quality results? You're delivering quality results at the time that you say you're going to deliver it. That is the measure. And of course, different industries have different measures too. If you're project management, there's different
Yes.
things. If you're
Yes.
FM, there's different things for sure. But it's looking at the delivery of your results rather than where you're working, how long you're working, what hours you're working. Because we were even just talking about this earlier. You could be somewhere else and do your work for a few hours, a couple hours, and be successful for the day and call it a day and work, take care of your children, take care of your parents, take care of your own mental health. You can do all of that, whereas we didn't before, because the measure of success is not how many hours or where you're sitting or how many hours you're in that seat, but it's in the deliverable of your work.
Yeah. No, that's very insightful because it has long been, time and place, not
Right.
results.
Yes.
And it does vary between different jobs and different
Yes.
focuses.
Yes.
I'll have to tell you the story because I think that this was a precursor to great change. So this was back in the early 2000s, and I was working for an organization at the time, and there was a big boom in business activity and so on, and the organization could not keep up with the office space because they were hiring like a thousand FTEs per year.
Oh, wow.
But it was also the advent of the mobile phone, the smartphone, the BlackBerry.
Oh, we
So
love
that was
blackberries.
okay. I'm dating myself, I know, but
Me too. It's okay. I'm with you. I'm with you, Kathleen.
but you know what? That was the start of this technology, and folks were kind of tentative, and some were very gung ho. And so the organization that I worked for had folks that were focused on all kinds of things. But I'll tell you this: a lot of them were project managers, and so they were working on projects, building projects that were not in the office. But because of policy and this narrow thinking about what work was, they had them drive and commute to the office, pick up an organizational vehicle, pack up their drawings and hard copy and their camera bag and all of this stuff, and then they would drive out to the construction site and meet with the contractor or the architect, probably both, and just kind of move the project along. So you think about this, and you go, okay, that is weird. That's very non-productive. Like you're spending X amount of your waking hours just driving into the office.
Yeah.
And then that's not where you're staying. You're jumping in a vehicle and then you're driving out to the workplace.
And then you probably have to drive back again there to drop everything off even.
Yes. And
Wow.
but the other part of this as well, with the advent of the smartphone, was that and here's where policy sometimes is a detriment to progress, but they'd never seen it before. So they said, ooh, you know what? I don't think you should be using the camera on that smartphone because, well, just because. So meanwhile, project manager had a bag full of camera gear, and so they needed to take photos. It's a construction project. Yeah, take photos, right? But they weren't allowed to use their smartphone to do it. These were early days. So we started a change project, and so we brought in IT folks, we brought in policy folks, we
Wow.
brought in HR folks, and we brought in a good sampling of different people So we had project managers, we had planners, we had designers, and then we talked about the work requirements and the schedules and stuff like this. And then we said, okay, project managers, ditch that roll of drawings that, that's so draconian. Take
Yeah.
top, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
use that. So
Yeah.
that's more common now. And I had to get a special approval so they could use the camera on their
Wow.
phone instead of
Wow.
all of this camera
Wow.
gear. But those were early days. So here
Yes.
we
Yes.
are, a good,
Yes.
what, 20 years later, and we're
Yes.
still sort of trying to find our way through very similar situations. So
Yes.
to
Yes.
me, it was a really good illustration of why change is hard. So firstly, it's resisted, and then it's maybe, and then, well, I don't know, and can we go back and stuff. So change is a challenge for sure. And
Yes.
it really does take, I think it takes a concerted exploratory effort on the part of everyone,
Mhm.
because they have to learn it's not scary, and they go, whoa, boy, this is pretty cool, I like this. So
Yes.
and I don't need to drive my vehicle to work, maybe I can take
Yes.
that company vehicle home and leave from there.
Yes.
So
Yes, yes. I love that, Kathleen. I love that story. And what that tells me too is that you took ownership over what you needed to have changed because you saw what was right and you understood, your team understood what the work was. And then it's pulling in all these other resources to, hey, this is what we do and this is how we can do it better, and then creating that change moving forward. And that what you did in that example, I love it because it's so copy paste to now, copy paste to 10 years. It's that it when you say change is a challenge, absolutely it is, but I always see change as a great opportunity because change allows you to do things that are better. It's just hard to get in there. It's hard to make a transition. Most people, most of the human race like to have things dependable in the same sort of manner that we're doing things because it's dependable. You can depend on it being it's consistent, and that's why change can be challenging. But there are ways, and you just described how you cannot stay stagnant in a world that is evolving around you because then you will be working backwards actually. And if in this environment that is technology driven and going faster than you can keep up. I mean, I can't even keep up with AI as much as my counterparts and my peers are. I'm like still holy cowed by that. And there's a lot of other technologies, right, that I'm still holy cowed by. And that's moving. That's moving fast. So if you don't change with it, if you don't start embracing it, you actually will find yourself moving backwards. I mean, even the younger generation, if you have children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews, you already feel like a caveman or a cave person because of how quickly they've adopted to technology. And I'd like to take what your example was moving that forward in the world of workplace and facility management and workplace experience. This is our moment. This is our moment because the one thing the pandemic shook up in the world of work is workplace. And now, if companies continue to not value our work and listen to us, then they will be seeing people leaving their organization and they will be grappling with, oh my God, what do I do? We have a lease coming up. What are we going to do with that? How are we going to figure that out? And the tendency is, oh, fewer people coming in the office, fewer days a week. All right, well, let's reduce the square footage. But that's a very finance point of view. And again, it is why we don't belong under finance because we are a human-centric point of view. And if you look at the human-centric point of view, it's not so much change the square footage as much as it is change what's going on the inside and make that more adaptable to the people who are coming into the office, especially if you have a hybrid strategy. And as we understand that creating a workplace experience calls for all the different experts on workplace, and that is real estate, facility management, interior design, project management, safety and security, workplace technology, workplace services, all of these folks, once you understand that, oh, we're not just a super person, we're part of super friends, and we have all of this group of people that are creating and redefining workplaces with us. Then it is now is our moment to reach out to all of our super friends and work together in the same way that you had described. What is working in the area of safety, because there's all different challenges, safety and security. Now, if you have no more fire marshals coming in, nobody to depend on to do sweepers and get people out in the case of an emergency, how are you going to change? How are you going to, create safety measures? Every aspect of the workplace has challenges. But like what you had said in your example, if you come in together, you'll find opportunities to create the change together so that you can actually redefine how you can create physical environments that support people and the organizations in ways that we've never done before. That's why I like to say this is our moment.
Yeah, no, this is great. You have defined team in a different way. Super friends. I like that because this really is, it's an industry that's absolutely team based, and it's so much smarter with the super friends involved and working together in it.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely, because there's too many complexities and too many interconnections
Yes.
to this. I would actually, perhaps because I have a business background as well, that finance is really important, but it's the outcome of decisions, and it may in fact guide some decisions. So I think things should always be measured financially, but that's very, very complex, because when you're starting to talk about productivity from folks in an environment that is changing, then you need tools that are more than just accounting.
Yes.
Accounting tends to look backwards, in the rear view mirror, what just happened that I'm sort of keeping track of. But you want to take that understanding of effort having cost and benefits, and look forward and
Mhm.
take all of this into consideration, because at the same time, we're also talking about sustainability. We're talking about energy
Yes.
consumption. We're
Yes.
talking about better ways to do things with
Yes. And
less cost.
diversity and include DEIB is huge. Yes. Yes, I completely agree. And I to emphasize too, or to help highlight what you were saying, as a GNA function or a general administrative function, that is the place that workplace is always going to be in, right? We are there to support. We are supporting function. So by that measure, there are a lot of financial aspects that we have to take care of, and there are budgets we have to optimize. And I think that's why the big challenge now in an office where people are coming in 2 or 3 days a week, how do you optimize business success? How do you optimize the office so that it provides services to employees, but optimizes the financial cost of actually only being open, say, fully open 2 days a week, for example. So there's all of the conversation, but I do need to mention that one of the things that I have been advocating for, and I will continue to advocate for the rest of my life, because it will happen, is to pull all the workplace functions together. Right now, all these workplace functions are working in silos from one another. Normally, you find, in most cases, you'll find corporate real estate under finance. You'll find facility management, sometimes under finance, sometimes under HR, sometimes in random places like procurement or legal, right? And then you have workplace services that nobody really understands. Oh, let's let facilities do it. And safety security, sometimes it's under manufacturing. Sometimes, oh, let's just facilities do it. Sometimes workplace sustainability, what is, oh, let's let facilities do it. I mean, there's all these different spaces, and workplace technology is under IT, and it's a very specific set of competencies, not the same as corporate IT. So what if we are now moving into a space, into an environment where a workplace experience is a key a key strategic decision for organizations, then you need to have somebody at the C-suite that has the competencies, skills, vision, and understanding of all the different components of a physical work environment. And that is, so I have been talking about, and I will advocate for it for the rest of my life, a chief workplace officer, because we need to have somebody in the C-suite that has these skill sets to be able to drive whatever your hybrid strategy is in the physical work environment. Otherwise, you're going to get this chopped up effect, of very inconsistent chopped up effect. Oh, you're going to have a decision that's made financially that doesn't jive with the way that HR sees it, but HR doesn't understand the physical environment also. And so it's kind of this weird, if we are redefining workplace, and workplace has now become a strategic business decision when it comes to running and operating an organization. Where are you going to work? How are we going to get people to work? How are we going to support them? Then you need to have somebody in that C-suite that has the skills, competencies, and vision on workplace.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Actually, this is a very, very important and hopefully changing situation. Now, personally, I have been in the C-suite, so I know what goes on there, and I know how important all of this is on so many levels for an organization. So I'm going to invite that you and I need to have another
Oh,
conversation,
I'd love it.
and that we should probably, I'd like to get into strategies of how that we organize more collaboration in this business, and how we tell the story about how it's so much more effective and impacting both on human resources and finance, because those are key players, and how that can actually improve an organization. So are you up for that?
I am more than up for that. I'm ready for that. I'm grateful for that opportunity to have this conversation with you. So yes.
Well, this has been great fun. I really thank you again for participating and throwing out all kinds of thought teasers into how change still needs to happen and how we can influence that for better organization. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for having me. And again, this is our moment. So let's seize it.